Hi, my name's Anouska De Georgiou, and welcome to the Empowered Exchange podcast. My guest today on the Empowered Exchange podcast is Royce Rendon, a survivor and an advocate. Royce, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm so excited that you made the trip. And I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of context as to how we first came into contact so that people can understand, how we're connected. So, pretty much just after I got back from speaking on Capitol Hill to advocate for the release of the Epstein files and the full transparency, I was looking on Instagram, and I'd been posting a little bit more on Instagram because I was really trying to put it out there how important this was and why it was important. And I was scrolling and I saw your video pop up. And as soon as I heard you speak, I could hear the vulnerability in your voice, letting me know that you were speaking as a survivor from a very authentic place. And I was listening to you and in real time kind of connecting to that experience. And even though we didn't have experiences that were exactly the same, it seemed as though the feelings were the same. So then I reached out to you, and maybe you can tell me kind of what your response was.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. And your response to me, or your reaching out to me, came in great shock because 3 weeks prior, I was listening to you and Lisa and all the other women speak at Capitol Hill. And I just remember banging my my spatula on the table just in a hell yeah moment, because to have so many women speaking up so bravely for what felt like me in that moment, for little me, advocating for, the little girls and you guys, it really clicked with me. And I started to feel like maybe there's a possibility that I can also advocate in the same way and spend my life helping other survivors of abuse, people who don't feel like they have the language or the ability to speak up. And so when you reached out to me, I was like, I just, the solidarity, it really hit me hardcore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did to me too. When I heard you speak, you're also so eloquent, and I want people to understand a little bit about your story, both your story of earlier childhood abuse and also your most recent assault.
Yeah.
So that they can understand. And I mean, you've built a pretty amazing, pretty quick support on social media, which is great because I feel like you're really well positioned to start not only helping people, but also helping yourself to walk through this with support of the public and with support of hopefully, people who've been through similar things. So will you take us through a little bit about your journey and your story?
Absolutely. Before I even get into the childhood part, I just want to preemptively state that when I shared that video that you're referencing, I wasn't prepared for the onslaught of support. I had never really framed it as, oh, well, I'm a man and I'm, talking about sexual assault. I just felt like in that very human moment, I was alone. I didn't have support. It had happened 8 weeks prior. And so it really contextualized my experience and realizing wow, it took me, my entire life coming here to reach this point where I do have a voice, I can be heard, and now I have community as a result of it. So, in the lead up to that, I came from a very tumultuous childhood. My mom was an addict. She suffered with schizophrenia and alcohol and drug addiction. My father had me at 21. So, obviously the combination of those two things doesn't lend itself to, a stable household. Eventually they did find some upward mobility, middle-class existence. But once my parents divorced, my dad wasn't able to hide my mom's addiction from me. And so I was subject to a lot of turbulence and violence. My mom would have, lots of schizophrenic episodes growing up, and, stopped feeding me at one point. And, the culmination of those things, obviously, you sort of build this learned helplessness very early on in life. You learn that when you go to other adults, you ask for help, when you try to speak up, people just either don't believe you or they don't take you seriously. And so from that was from age 11. And eventually I spoke to my dad and I told him, this is what's happening at my mom's house. Like, did you know about these things? So it was a bit of a complex relationship with my father, because on the one hand, he protected me from seeing it, but on the other hand, he neglected me and, left me to build a new family. And so once I spoke up about it, however, my dad was able to start the process of getting me custody, which also meant that I had to see a mediator and I had to do all these things. And the last time I ever saw my mom, it was a court order from the state of California, or the local county, that she had to pick me up from school. But I begged my counselor, I begged the principal, please do not make me go with her. And they said, she's your mom, she'll protect you. And I will never forget those words, because I fought all day at school to be believed, and I wasn't believed. And instead, my mom showed up, and I ended up calling the police. They couldn't force me to go with her, and that was the last time I ever saw my mom.
And how old were you?
I was 13 years old.
And how did you feel?
I felt, I'm actually writing a book about it, and this is, I think, one of the most pivotal chapters of my life, because, there was a sense of agency. There was maybe a tinge of, at least little kid power. It was like, wow, if no one else is going to protect me in this world, then I can do this. But honestly, I was scared. I was running from my mom on a campus. It was literally raining outside, almost like a movie. And so, but it was frightening because,
well, yeah. I mean, what you said is so poignant, right? Because you're like talking about the power, or the, perception of power involved in maybe that little bit of assertion of like, no one will protect me, so I'll do it. But then, the sadness of no one will protect me if I don't protect myself.
Absolutely. And I just remember sitting in the police car and thinking to myself, my fate is literally in the hands of those police officers and of my mom. I mean, my mom was trying to convince them that everything was okay, that I was just being, unruly. But the reality was going back with her meant a life of, where I might not get fed, have my basic needs met. And we can touch more on my mom later as it pertains to today, but I will tell you that little me was right. And I'm really happy that I advocated for myself, but I feel that kids shouldn't have to do that. And that's the whole point, and that's why I think you and I are here today.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, what I'm learning more and more since I've begun to be more public and since I've started speaking out is there are so many areas where we need to do better in protecting children, in changing the way that law enforcement handles domestic violence, handles custody evaluation, in the way that things are processed through family court, in the way that that even these things are handled by teachers, by people who are supposed to be in a position of power and supposed to be the front line of advocates in protecting children.
Absolutely. And I think that when a system is built to protect the predators, even in passing, it's the people who suffer are always the kids, are always those who are vulnerable in that moment. And that's why I mentioned the phrase learned helplessness. I mean, that's really where it started for me, because over time, I started to build this notion in my brain that if I speak up about something, people will not believe me. And so you juxtapose that with this very individualistic kind of take on healing where, I'm responsible for my life, my results, my healing, all true. But when you don't also offer support and community and resources to people to actually heal properly, I mean, part of it too, honestly, is like sometimes we just need rest and we need a safe home. We need, food and all those things later on when we struggle with the aftermath of our trauma. But
yeah. So the thing that you came out and spoke about on social media that got a lot of attention, a lot of mainly support, was an assault that took place 8 weeks before you posted it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. So can you help us to understand sort of in a general way what happened and how it was handled, and then how you came to stop processing this in a post on social media?
Yeah, I got chills as you said that, because I mean, that last story I shared about seeing my mom, that was the last time I ever saw my mom, but that was also the last year I ever saw my sisters. That 17-year gap was painful because I've spent my entire life searching for safety, searching for mother, searching for nurturance, and struggling to support myself, frankly. And so I wanted to meet my sister for the first time. I wanted to understand her story. I know she'd been struggling, and I'd been struggling too, but I felt like if we could meet, maybe there was a little bit of healing and family. I mean, she's one of the only family members I have. So
She's younger than you.
She's actually older.
Oh, she's older than you.
Yeah, I have a younger sister as well, but I have two eldest sisters that are half sisters. So my ex actually booked the ticket for me to go to LA. I landed, she picked me up from the airport, and I thought, you know what, Josie? We haven't seen each other in 17 years. It's probably best that we go to a more relaxing place. So we went to Santa Monica. We sat on the pier. Ironically, we went to Bubblegum, but we were just having a blast. It was a sunny day. It was pretty outside, and we had brunch together. And then about time for us to start driving home, which was about an hour and a half, I said, you know what? Why don't we go to like West Hollywood? This is where, your brother's gay now. She didn't know me as gay.
Right.
And so it felt kind of funny. And so we go to this very popular bar in West Hollywood, popular gay bar. And we show up. It's like 8:45, maybe 9 p.m. And within 30 minutes, she and I had just completely blacked out. I don't know how. I don't know. Later on, we learned, my sister, according to her account, the man, the perpetrator, was actually standing across the bar. Different story. But in any case, I disappeared for 13 hours. Nobody knew where I was. My location went off, and my sister got arrested for public intoxication. And I woke up the next morning. I didn't know who I woke up next to. I don't remember meeting them. I couldn't tell you a thing that happened within those 13 hours. And then also found out much later that a man took me to the bathroom at that establishment and raped me. So that happened in February. I went to the police as soon as I woke up. And actually, this is important for me to say. The first thing I did when I called my ex, I didn't say I was raped. I said, I think I was kidnapped. And we went to the West Hollywood Sheriff's Department. I filed a report.
You and your sister went?
Yeah.
Okay.
We went. And the guy, the rapist actually, that I woke up to was there at the police station because my sister sent a text, basically angry, like, what did you do? Blah, blah, blah. So he showed up and tried to get out ahead of it. But that's how we identified, that guy was actually, she was like, that's the guy that I said, hey, why is that creepy guy looking at us? And I just remember going to my sister and saying, Josie, your brother's gay now. Let's have a good time.
Right.
Whatever. And then, so we identified him. We told the police, filed the report, and then they had us drive all the way to UCLA to get the kit done, only to realize that there were no nurses there. They were all on call, and so I had to wait an additional 2 hours, so just prolonged the process of getting evidence. And then we drove home, and that was it.
Wow. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that happened to you and to your sister. And I would imagine, that was already such a charged emotional moment that, like meeting your sister, spending time with her for the first time in 17 years.
Yeah.
And so, of course, you want to you've had this intense time. You want to end it with like going to have a quick drink or something. And I think I remember you telling me you guys had like 2 drinks.
Yeah. We shared both of them. And
So
she might have
2 drinks between you.
Yeah. Between us. And then, 20 minutes later, I remember between 9:12 and 9:30, and this is part of my evidence. After 9:30, there was no outbound text. I didn't call or text a single person. According to my ex, my location went off at 11, and my watch went missing. It was stolen. And my sister, according to her, she literally knocked her head on the table and like just collapsed. And while this is happening, apparently at the same time, I was with some other man, and he was doing things to me in the bathroom, I guess, and whatever. And it was so confusing because I used to go to that bar when I was closeted. I used to work a block away. And so I would like sneak in and I would wait.
Right.
And it just felt like, oh, you know what? This will be a really good kind of meta moment for my sister and I to be like, here we are.
Yes, yes.
And it turned into something completely different.
Yeah. And then how was it handled by was it the sheriff you went to?
Yeah. So initially we went to the West Hollywood Sheriff's Department because in our minds, that's where the incident started, only for them to tell us that because I woke up in Hollywood, that I had to go to the Hollywood. So they sent me there and they said, no, you need to go to West Hollywood. And so they brought the same two sheriffs that told me to go to the West Hollywood precinct or told me to go to the Hollywood precinct back to Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
So I was so confused.
Yeah.
And I was...
And obviously, I mean, recovering from, and probably still confused, disassociated, hungover from whatever they gave you, whatever they spiked your drink with.
It felt like nothing I'd ever experienced before. I was so violently ill, and my sister felt the same way. And yeah, I was more angry than anything. I remember I felt so angry that this whole process was being prolonged. And I knew that if it were any sort of date rape drug, that I had a very finite amount of time.
A window,
because it's usually 6 to 7 hours. And, obviously in the gay community, we always talk about harm reduction. And so that was always active in my mind. But I also knew that this didn't feel like a normal, something was off.
Explain what that means about harm reduction for those people who don't understand what that means in relation to what you're talking about in your community.
Absolutely. So, I mean, our community has been shamed for, decades, millennia for just existing. And so when it comes to substance use or alcohol use, we try not to shame other people for using.
Right.
But we talk about harm reduction in order to... So basically, harm reduction is making an... Do you mind if I actually repeat that again? Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
So harm reduction is mitigating the harm that can and usually is caused by the substance. So we always try to mitigate those factors, whether it's test strips or, and so I'm always keenly aware of that when I go into queer spaces that, there are going to be drugs there. There's going to be lots of liquor, and I just want to be really active in knowing what happens. And, but when I woke up that next morning, I literally fell asleep on my sister's lap at the police station because I was just, I couldn't explain what happened. And I was trying to fill in the memories. I don't remember a single thing. And usually when I've been blackout drunk, I will have some semblances of a memory. It'll be like a flash here and a flash there. Not a single thing.
No one's blackout drunk on 2 drinks.
No.
No one.
No, and nor would I ever leave my sister under those circumstances. I mean, we had to drive home. Right. And the deal between us was that we would just rent a hotel or something if we ended up staying, but I wasn't given that chance. So
So you've been through this traumatic event which on what was meant to be like a nice reunification with your sister.
Yeah.
And then you get sent from place to place. You have to wait for the rape kit.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, the hope is, okay, there might have been a lack of resources, but the hope would be at that point your complaint was taken seriously and a proper investigation took place into the person who was alleged or suspected of being the perpetrator, and that the sheriff would go to the establishment and make a thorough investigation as to like video footage, etc. So what actually happened?
So in the aftermath, within actually a week or two, I got a call from an officer who said that they retrieved my watch. He wouldn't tell me how. So I was like, strange.
They retrieved your watch from the establishment, or they didn't tell you anything about work?
Anything. I have no idea. All he just said is, like, when I asked him the question, he had this very hesitant pause, and he said, who can pick this up? And I said, my sister. So my sister picked it up, and then in the subsequent weeks, it was again the burden of proof is always on survivors. So I had to compile evidence. I sent in everything from screenshots of bank statements to, photos, interactions that from people who claim to have met me that night that I don't even remember. And And then I worked with a detective who actually was quite compassionate with me, believed me, it seemed, and I felt like every step of the way, as arduous as it was, there was some hope.
Okay.
And I was really hinging on the fact that, maybe if, I'm public and I send everything, every little bit of evidence, that they'll believe me. And then in September, I got a call back and they said that they didn't have enough evidence to prosecute, that the DA decided not to move forward with the case.
To prosecute the perpetrator?
Yes, the perpetrator, not the establishment.
I see.
So, that was doubly frustrating too, because at the end of the day, I don't know what happened. All I know is that there was 20 minutes and, my sister and I were drugged. And so, when I tell you that it was worse to get that call, it was far worse than the rape. It was worse than going to the police. Because it just felt like it was like a death almost. And I've spent the last few months really struggling to cope with that reality, to come to terms with the fact that I did all the things that a victim blamer would tell you to do, and it still wasn't enough. And then made doubly difficult by the fact that I'm public with my story. And as you know, there are great consequences to being public with your assault story. And so it felt like, wow, I had just put my entire life on the line and nothing came of it.
Right. Throughout my story and everything that's happened since my first abuses took place, around 15, 16, I've had different moments where I've been glad that I came forward and also that I've regretted coming forward. And sometimes at the same time, I've had both of those feelings because, as you say, there are consequences. Some of the consequences for me are, if you don't come forward, if you don't go to the police, if you don't get public about it, then you don't get the closure, you don't get the resolution, but you also don't get the disappointment of not having those things. And that for me was, society, I feel, tells us if you do the right thing, if you tell the truth, if you behave with integrity, the world will support you. That's not true. That's not been my experience. My experience has been if you behave with integrity, if you tell the truth, if you come forward, your integrity is questioned on every level. Yeah. Your experience is questioned on every level. Your memory is questioned on every level. Yeah. You are scrutinized in a way that you would never be scrutinized if you were robbed at gunpoint, if you were a victim of any other kind of crime. And suddenly, and only, I feel, with sexual abuse, sexual assault, rape, suddenly you're on trial, not them.
And everything comes up to the surface, so to speak. I mean, people love to make psychoanalyzations of your character, premised on nothing more than the way you sound, the way you look, your presentation. And I got to tell you, too, one of the reasons, the biggest reason I'm here is not only because you reached out and believe me, but because you two understand what it's like to have your story used to the benefit of other people. And you're a human. You're just telling the truth. And I didn't want to ever talk about this with people who were just going to sensationalize it or make it about where it happened, who did it. It's like, at the end of the day, all I'm asking for is justice. And also, I don't want other people to get hurt at the place. I don't want to get the person to get, I don't want, there's a rapist free on the streets now.
Yeah.
Scot-free. And those are the fundamentals of why I share. And yet still people will doubt the veracity of my story in order to cast a doubt. But all it does is just protect the people who did it.
And also, to be clear, this wasn't an ambiguous situation where you met somebody and you kind of got along and then, you know, you went home with him and you weren't sure and you should. This is somebody who, in a premeditated way, put something in your drink and with clearly malicious intent, because why else would you drug somebody? Whether that was that the intent was primarily to rob you, primarily to rape you, I don't know, both.
Yeah.
And so there is a person, I mean, that's sort of like that's a pathology in somebody that is extremely dangerous. Yeah. And the response, it sounds as though the detective was compassionate who interviewed you, but it's, and my experience is also, it's not with, there are some good individual police officers and you know, detectives, but unfortunately they're not supported by the system that we have in place with the ability to follow through on their investigations. And I think also something that we have to examine is that there's a certain degree of corruption that we've seen in this country at the highest level and at every level down.
And I think the other, I mean, honestly, for me, I will never understand what it's like for a woman to experience an assault. And I know that as a guy, for a lot of people, it's quite jarring, you know, and then, you know, as a gay man, you just add that layer and people are suddenly like, oh, well, you're promiscuous. You must have done something that caused it. But to your point, I didn't go to the bar with my sister under those pretenses. We were supposed to leave together. We were supposed to remain together.
Right.
And I think in order to legitimize my story, I felt the need to almost over-explain to people who doubt it. And I think, to your point about institutionalized abuse, it's like, how are we able to tell the truth as survivors without putting our lives in danger? And that's, you know, people always call you like you guys brave as Epstein survivors, but for me, it's like you're not asking for anything more than what should have already been given to you, and it comes. I'm so like it pisses me off because it comes at such a great cost, and the only reason I can be here is because of all of you. I wouldn't be able to even think I had a chance at justice, and I don't take it lightly that I'm here.
You're very brave too, and I have your back. Healing has been a really gruesome and lonely process because people say they reach out in solidarity, they say all the right words, they push the right buttons, but at the end of every night, I have to go to bed with it. Yeah. Every date, every man I meet, I have to think about what happened to me. I have a remembrance of it. And you are the only person who can hear the words coming out of my mouth and understand just how painful it is to not only recover, but to do so with the constant knowing that there are other people that have been hurt, that can get hurt if these systems and institutions remain in place. And so it's always that conundrum of how do I protect myself? How do I heal? How do I, get myself to a place where I can advocate? But then also it feels like there are timestamps. I mean, there's constantly, and you guys have experienced a barrage of just the media is just relentless, and yet you guys are women and you're here with your story. Sorry, not to go on a tangent, but okay. You know, I think the thing about going public with my story and then seeing you go public with your story is also that it's disappointing enough when law enforcement, the system lets you down just privately. But when you then, I mean, for me, and I don't want to speak for you, but I feel as though you might connect with this, that, you know, it's disappointing enough that you're like, okay, so the DA is not gonna prosecute. They're saying they don't have enough evidence. And then now, and that happened so many times with the Epstein and Maxwell case. It was like, I mean, it was year after year, you know, 1 girl, 2 girls, 3 girls, 4 girls, 5 girls, 10 girls, 300 girls, not enough evidence.
Yeah.
Right? And then to be public in that, and even, with the going to Capitol Hill and the release of the files, it's sort of like we're all out there being vulnerable, putting our own stories and our own lives on blast with the only intention of helping to get transparency, to get justice. And then nothing happens. And then nothing happens. And then excuses are made, and lies were told, and promises were broken. And then it's re-traumatizing because it's embarrassing and humiliating all over again that I did this for nothing. And that was the feeling that I had. And it was embarrassing. Yeah. When it was like, oh, we're here to get the results and the files, and then nothing happens. And then we come up against another hurdle, and then nothing happens. And then excuses are made. And we go through that, right?
Yeah.
And the only thing that gives me comfort is that even if we don't ever see the justice, both myself or you, we open up the conversation and we create a platform for people who were too frightened to come forward, because we do have strength in numbers.
Yeah.
And when I reached out to you, I wanted to help you. I wanted to serve you because I've been walking this path longer than you. And I felt that I could contribute something that maybe other people hadn't had the experience with and couldn't offer you. But I also did it because it helps me to connect with other survivors. And you helped me.
I have to just sit with that for a second, because when you spend a lifetime not being believed and suddenly you have a voice, people are hearing you, and other people who have had parallel experiences, be it as different as they have been, I don't know how to fully receive it, and that's okay. I'm gonna get to the point where I'm gonna feel comfortable talking about this openly, but I gotta tell you, you have been the one person, and like almost like a guardian angel for me. You can sense when something is awry with me, and you're so immediately attuned to that, because you also have that same almost hyper-vigilant sense of like that need to protect other people. And I think that's what people miss when they get caught up in the sensationalized, the politicized angles. It's man, you handle it with so much grace. I mean, you and Lisa have really gone out. You've put yourselves up, on the proverbial chopping block in order to bring as much awareness as possible. I can't even imagine. And that's why I'm talking to you and not media people about the place, the person, because you, above all, will understand what it's like to face institutions, powers that be, and still tell the truth.
Yeah. I think, what I try to communicate because I've had now hundreds of people, male, female, gay, straight, all across the spectrum, reach out to me with various different stories of abuse of power, of assault, of rape, of kidnapping, of institutionalized abuse. And I, from experience, I have to tell them, you might not get justice. You may well not get any resolution to this. But I can tell you, I might be able to give you an idea of what might happen, right? An idea of what the experience is, what the process is. And I wish somebody had told me at the time, the first time, because I told a couple of people about what happened to me many, many years ago. And what I wished somebody had told me is, let me talk you through the different options that are available to you and the consequences of those different options, right? So this is what it looks like to report things. This is the standard that you need to meet. This is the standard that the DA needs to meet in order for you to qualify to have a case.
Yeah.
this is how long you might have to wait. This is the way, these are the ways that you might be able to get free support from nonprofits. These are the ways that you might be able to get legal support. These are the different attorneys who might take on your case on contingency. These are your local representatives who can perhaps help advocate for you if you go to them. And if somebody had given me those options, I may still have chosen not to come forward at the time, but at least I would have had the information.
Yeah.
You know?
At least it would have been available, disseminated to you. And also, frankly, this goes back to that individualistic thing I mentioned earlier, which is it's one thing to, as a society, to like broadly throw support and it's kind of like throwing a life, what do you call it? Lifesaver off of a boat, and then telling someone who barely knows how to swim, like, here you go, just all you got to do is just paddle your feet and do it while they're drowning.
Right.
It does nothing to actually advocate for survivors. And then we also silence people, perhaps inadvertently, when we shame them for even talking about it privately. And actually, I will tell you that even within my community, and I want to be very careful about how I say this, I think because so many people in the gay community have been sexually abused, when you double that down with also, you know, having been shamed for existing, for being gay, for being queer, I mean, it's a recipe for like unhealed trauma. And so how could people possibly hold space for my story, you know, watching it publicly while also struggling with their own? It's almost, it creates a whole other level with what happened to me, because and that's where that sense of duty comes from. That's why I speak up, because I recognize so many men have also been, and who have come forward to me, have also been abused and raped. And I think I want to say this too, because I think it's actually quite important. But a month following the DA's decision not to prosecute, the West Hollywood Sheriff's Department went on they did what they called a citywide, bar raid thing, where they said that they had enough evidence to actually make arrests to people who were responsible for some of the robbings, illegal activities, the druggings, all of that. So arrests were made, and it felt like, you know what, maybe if I didn't get justice on that level, maybe my story helped. Maybe it was just one more plant of evidence. And I think to your point, if we can just speak that, then.
So what does it look like now, you know, now that you've had sort of the surge of support, which, as you said, it was very eloquent the way you said it's like a lifesaver being thrown to you. But I feel like it's like a lifesaver being thrown to you than the people from the boat who threw it, like rowing away from you as well.
Boat's still going.
Right? Yeah, you know, like you're still just alone, and they could have totally come and helped. And although I love support from people, as you say, at the end of the night, you're left by yourself with your feelings, with your memories, with the pieces of your memory that you can't fill in, which is sometimes more painful than the ones you do remember. And so now you've had this surge of support, this surge of becoming an influencer as the result of you speaking out about this. The disappointment of not getting your own case prosecuted. What's next for you in terms of how you want to move forward with your recovery and your future as an advocate?
Well, today is the first time that I am sharing this in person and publicly with another survivor. And so the intention for me coming here was to lay the groundwork for me to put the actual story of what happened to me behind enough for me to figure out ways to advocate. So I've always been a writer. Long before the assaults ever happened, I would always share stories on Instagram, and I would write to people about my childhood, and I just share little tidbits, because people look at me and they reduce me to the sum total of how I look. But writing has always given me the ability to articulate and bring language to who I actually am. And so I want to be able to use that ability that I've accumulated in order to help other survivors of abuse. I want to speak. I want to have my own. It's been my lifelong dream to have a talk show host, and all I want to do is see less suffering in the world. I don't want to cause anyone pain with my words. I know that as a survivor, you know, my trauma can and does affect other people. And that's been made painfully aware to me this year. And so I want to continue to, I go to this great center in New York City. It's called the Crime Victims Treatment Center. It's where I receive trauma therapy. I currently do DBT.
Great.
And I'm actually starting a writing therapy group, which is great. And I even raised some money for them this year. I mean, because of all the people that have come forward, they, you know, and it felt really good to create light out of what happened. And I know other survivors will agree when I say that it's not fair that we have to create light out of things. But I'm really happy that there are better people in this world than the people who did what they did to us. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that less people walk out of that city and that place and get hurt.
Well, I think you're an amazing person. I know that your identity is so much more than what happened to you. I know that you've already done so much good in coming forward and speaking your truth about your experience, about your recovery as it continues. And I think you're uniquely positioned, especially as a male victim of sexual assault, sexual abuse, rape, and also as a member of the queer community. That there's so much stigma, like between being a man, you know, a gay man. I feel as though there's such a stigma around sexual abuse and sexual assault within both those demographics and those demographics together. So I think you can help so many people by destigmatizing, by continuing to share, by continuing to question, how can we do better? How can law enforcement do better? How can we do better as a community? How can we do better to protect each other, to protect ourselves, to hold others accountable, to hold ourselves accountable in empowering ourselves to change what we can to help us control our own experience. And I think I'm your biggest fan. And I think you're just gonna, I wish that this opportunity had not come from the experience it did. But somehow I think this will create meaning for you that you always longed for.
I want to thank you so much for saying that. And I want to say before we close this out, I just want to ask a question, honestly, to anyone who's listening. What happens when the shell you built to protect yourself in this world is weaponized against you? And the reason I'm asking that question is not to victimize myself or to make myself seem like a martyr. It's because everything you see right now, if you're watching this, it's all just a front. It's a facade. I built this at a young age because I didn't want to be bullied. I didn't want to be abused like the little 13-year-old boy, that was running from my mom. That's what all of this is protecting. And I do have some level of privilege within my community, even in my ability to articulate these things. And so I'm going to exercise whatever little privilege I can, even if it's not monetary, and talk about it. Because everyone deserves to feel safe wherever they go.
Well, I hope you'll come back and we'll do more of this. And thank you for being my friend.
Thank you for being a real friend. I love you.
Love you too.